midst of these trying times for EVs, Rivian is launching the very much anticipated R2. For the longest time, the number one factor that has stopped many people from purchasing a Rivian is the price. The R1 vehicles, as amazing as they are just too unobtainable for most people. But the bigger problem at hand was the fact that even with the already high prices they demand for their vehicles, Rivian still isn't really making hardly anything off of them. But 2 years ago, good God, has it really been that long? Rivian showcased their plans to bring down the prices for consumers and at the same time, hopefully bring the company to profitability. But the more I think about the R2 as of recently, now with Rivian actually finalizing the product, the more uneasy I become about it. From extremely bold efficiency claims to pricing that seems a little too good to be true, here's my take on the Rivian R2. Of course, I should be clear with you all that I have a slight personal bias against crossovers and SUVs in general, so pardon me for not being all that excited about the launch of yet another one of those oversized vehicles. But let's be fair to what it actually is. Rivian is pitching this vehicle as a smaller R1S, fitting into what seems to be now a meaningless mid-size SUV category. It includes the obvious changes of only two-row seating and a lower, more obtainable price, but there are so many more changes below the surface. Because of Rivian's focus of costing down, they've made a lot of changes in efforts to reduce the complexity and making it easier to scale. Things like the wiring being moved to their zonal architecture to reduce material costs there and swapping the air suspension for a much more cost-effective and probably more reliable coil suspension. They're also changing up the cell dimensions to 4695 cells for the same reason. And the general footprint of the vehicle itself is smaller than the R1S, even if it doesn't really look like it at the surface. But while they're figuring out how to reduce costs, they're also making sure that the R2 is more up to date with the times, bringing not just the NACS port, but also moving it to the driver rear side of the vehicle for better V3 supercharger compatibility. But also because that's just where it should be in the first place. They've updated the control system for the gauge cluster and cruise control system to these new wheels they call haptic halos. And unfortunately, they've lately been pulling a few Teslas and have begun talking up a storm about Tesla levels of autonomy. As an FSD critic, I am not particularly pleased to see that. And I guess this is where we have to start getting into the questionable territory about this car. Autonomy aside, there are some things that legit aren't adding up for me. Things such as the estimated range for this vehicle. Rivian claims the size of the battery pack to be at around 88 kilowatt hours usable. That's only an additional 6 kilowatt hours over the Model Y Premium for reference. Now, to keep the comparison as fair as possible, let's compare the R2 Premium all-wheel drive to the Model Y Premium all-wheel drive. The Tesla is advertising an EPA range rating of 327 miles for the Model Y. Thankfully, the EPA numbers are not actually that far off from the actual real-world performance of Teslas lately. So if we do some quick math, 327 divided by 82 kilowatt hours is 3.98, let's just call it 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, Rivian is estimating roughly the same range at 330 miles EPA, so if we do that math real quick, that would mean the R2 has to achieve at least 3.75 miles per kilowatt hour in order to hit that figure. Call me cynical, but I just do not find that realistic, and here's why. Aerodynamics. It's been proven time and time again in the electric world that aerodynamics have a humongous impact on energy consumption. And just by comparing the R2 and Model Y side by side, it should look obvious that one is going to have significantly better aero over the other. The reason why the Model Y looks like a bulbous sedan is because of aerodynamics. But Rivian wants to keep the R2 styled like a traditional SUV. And while that may have some advantages over the Model Y for other reasons, aerodynamics ain't one of them. And based on recent history, many boxy electric SUVs tend to really struggle to break the 3 mile per kilowatt hour mark. So Rivian is either being dishonest about the battery capacity of R2, being extremely optimistic about the EPA rating, or found a way to use dark magic and cheat the laws of physics. We know they did not do at least one of the following. So I'll try to be generous in giving a more realistic calculation, but my guess is that the R2 is going to be able to hit at least 3 miles per kilowatt hour on the highway. Do the math, and that translates to 264 miles. I understand that seems a lot lower than what some of you may have hoped for, but understand I am simply taking a guess at its efficiency. It is possible the R2 could do better than my guess, but 3.75 miles per kilowatt hour, that just seems a bit too optimistic given the aero profile. You'd have to be exclusively city driving on residential roads or driving down a never-ending mountain if you actually want to be able to achieve that level of efficiency. Now, slightly disappointing range would be more forgivable if it charges quickly, and while it's not the end of the world, it's fairly underwhelming compared to the competition just on the horizon. Rivian claims a 10 to 80% charge time in 30 minutes, which isn't necessarily bad, but given that BMW's iX3, Mercedes CLA Electric, and Volvo's EX60 are also around the corner with 10 to 80 times in less than 20 minutes, R2 be feeling a little slow. Not to mention, all of those other vehicles have battery capacities large enough to definitely take them over 300 miles of range. In comparison to them, R2 is going to have to stop more frequently and for longer. Even though Tesla's own Model Y has a charging curve just as mediocre as Rivian's, its efficiency bare minimum has allowed the cars to travel significantly faster than the majority of their competition. And this is before any potential thermal issues that Rivian is unfortunately known for. And finally, we have to come to pricing. And I'm not sure how to feel about it, because on one hand, it's very good on the customer end, but given the state of the world and the massive supply chain disruption due to tariffs, I have to wonder what Rivian's profit margins will be with pricing. Remember, the R1 vehicles have not been very profitable for them, even despite their already high asking prices. And if Rivian can't make enough money off of their product, then the company will simply cease to exist unless somebody else buys them out. I have no doubt that because Americans think they need vehicles like these, that Rivian will not have a demand problem. But the question is, can Rivian cut their expenditures in half to build this so they can continue to sell it at the same amazing prices? So far, they are staying committed to offering a starting price of $45,000, though that's not coming until probably over a year from now. They plan on pricing the premium version at $54,000, and the initial launch edition or performance version will be starting at $85,000. As far as I'm concerned, I find this to be a much better value compared to the Model Y. No, it won't be as quick of a road tripper as the Model Y, but the R2 has a way nicer interior, better storage packaging optimization, more off-road capability, though I suspect that aside from YouTubers, it will basically never be taken advantage of, and a CEO that actually seems to care about the product. I don't think we can say the same about Elon and Tesla right now. This generally sums up my thoughts on Rivian's R2. I can't really get myself excited anymore because once again, it's another SUV, and America's obsession with them has gotten way too out of hand. So far out of hand, in fact, that now there is literally only one option I have to choose from now if I want a proper, affordable electric vehicle, and that's Tesla's Model 3. I can't even say the Hyundai Ioniq 6 anymore because that's now been canceled for North America. That'll be for another video. So don't mind me being a little grumpy over this launch. I do like Rivian in general, particularly the R1T pickup truck, and I do want them to succeed and break even because we certainly need more competition in the electric space. And I also find a lot of Rivian's tech to be very innovative, like the zonal architecture for their ECUs and the incredible powertrains, but also with the R1T in particular, how they also went about packaging the bed and gear tunnel. I would love to own an R1T if the opportunity presented itself, as long as it has knacks. I understand that the R2 is necessary to bring Rivian to profitability, but other than that, I don't really have any other reason to be excited about it. Thanks for watching, and do us a favor and interact with the stuff below. Also, do me a favor and check out my Patreon page. I would very much appreciate that. This is the Random Alpha Drive. signing out.